This is Kelly.
And this is Amy.
And you're listening to Diary of a Death Investigator. We are doing the ABC's A Death Investigation. This is part 3. So far, we've gone A to M. So we're going to start at N. And I'm going to let Amy take it away.
Yeah, I've done pretty good so far. So let's keep this ball rolling.
Hey, I've asked good questions.
Yeah, I just, I told you. I know things. So.
You told me you're going to learn us up.
Yes. Well, let's hope that I know the rest of these as well as I've known the first half. So actually, this first one that I'm starting with, I have a pretty good story that goes with this. So N is for necropsy. So necropsy is basically just an autopsy for animals, which we don't necessarily do all the time. But this particular case, it was actually quite sad. So this elderly woman was out walking her little dog, and this was in her neighborhood. And we were aware when this call came in that there was these huge dogs. They're called Doggo Argentinos. They really look like just these huge pit bulls. They're all white, but they have these black spots around their eyes. But they're way bigger. And these dogs had been getting out of their yard. There was 2 of them, I think. And over and over, they were getting out from under their fence, and people were complaining about them. And I think the owners weren't home a lot and just really didn't care. And I think they were basically terrorizing other people in the neighborhood, and super aggressive dogs. And that's just because the owners didn't care and didn't train them. So this lady was walking by this house with her little dog, and you could see someone had video cameras on their house, and you could watch this happening. The dogs came at her, not the dog, and the little dog was actually trying to protect her. And they actually killed her dog, and they were just attacking her. I mean, so aggressively at her throat, at her head. And the cops showed up, and you could see these dogs literally trying to bite off the bumper of the police car. The cops shot one dog. It took 8 shots to put one of the dogs down because they were so aggressive. I don't remember how many times they shot the other dog before it finally stopped, and I think it eventually died. But oh my gosh,
did the woman die?
Yeah, that's why we had her. So we brought her in, and they brought in one of the dogs because at the time the other one was still alive, and they had it at the vet. And so they brought the dog in because there was parts of the woman inside the dog.
Oh, well, what did they need proof of it since you saw it on camera, or?
Because this was going to go to court, and they were going to find the owners liable. So the dogs had bit almost beheaded her, all the way through her neck. Yes. And her head, I mean, the jaws fit all the way around her head. It was insane. So I think the doctor was not happy about them bringing the dog in. He's like, why did you guys bring the dog in? And I remember opening the cooler and being there's a dog in here. What is this? Honestly, some days you didn't know what you're going to open the cooler to find, because one time I opened it up and I was like, why is there a big green trash can in here? And then when I got to collect the evidence, I was not happy about it.
Oh, you mean garbage? It was garbage.
Oh, a person was stuffed in there. Yeah, so they wanted to open up the stomach contents to find. It was all around just an entirely sad story, but necropsy isn't always for those types of things, but in this situation, that's what it was used for. So that's what that is. Sorry that I started this. Yeah, sorry I started this off so sad. So, odontologist. So sometimes we have to use a teeth expert to go over x-rays of teeth to identify a person. And specifically, we had a case of someone who was actually very important. He was burned up so badly, he literally just looked like a stump of a person with his head attached. And we didn't have any other way to identify him other than his dental records. And I believe it was someone that we used quite frequently. And he came in with the x-rays and identified him that way. Like we use our own x-rays, and they actually have to manipulate the x-rays to get exactly what they need. But odontology is super important in forensics. And like we've talked about before, not so much anymore with bite marks. We don't really use bite marks for evidence anymore, but it's more so for identifying people from teeth. And sometimes when you find spare teeth out in house fires and whatnot. So, and then our other O word, which is one of
my favorite word.
Yeah, it is Kelly's favorite, is orifices. So,
it just sounds gross.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either, but it does. It sounds gross.
So
maybe it's the way that you say it, like orifice, like the way that your mouth moves when you say it. I don't know. I don't like it.
Orifice.
Yeah. Amy's trying to move her mouth now. You know what I mean. But anyways, tell us what an orifice is.
It is literally impossible to say without moving your mouth that way, I have to say.
It's weird.
Sorry. I remember the first time I said it, you're like, ugh. So it's just it's whatever opening or body cavity opening you have literally in your body. So your nostrils, your mouth, all those things, it's, yeah.
Amy's favorite place to swab.
Yeah. I mean, it's your body. Sorry.
Would an orifice also be like when you've talked about the bugs eating away at faces and stuff?
No.
Those holes? Oh, okay.
No.
It's just natural holes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's like an injury, something like that. So, yeah, and that's where bugs like to go for first and lay eggs. Gross. Yay! It's all a part of the circle of life. So,
no.
You're welcome. Sorry. Moving on to P. So, back when we were talking about BBLs, Bootylicious, we were talking about PEs or pulmonary embolisms. So, pulmonary embolisms can be what's in your lungs, pulmonary. It's a blockage of your airways. So this can also happen. Any type of embolism can be a blockage of blood vessels or really any type of blockage that will move their way. They can move their way up to your heart or into your lung. I've seen really massive embolisms in people's legs. So a lot of times, when you see people travel, sometimes they wear those like circulatory socks. Like
compression socks.
Yeah. So sometimes that's why you see people wear those.
I'm not wearing it for that, but it just helps with like swelling and stuff. Because when you're sitting for so long and you're not moving.
Yeah, circulation, right? You don't want blood pooling in your legs. So people that have surgery a lot of times or injuries, but specifically people that have surgeries and usually are maybe a little bit older, the big thing, a lot of times they're like, yeah, they seem perfectly fine this morning, but they just had surgery like 2 days ago. And this morning they just dropped dead. And but they've been laying in bed for a long time and they got up to go to the bathroom or something. And you're like, oh, well, it sounds like a PE. So, and sure enough, you open them up, like a lot of times you just like flip them over. If it's like, say they have like a knee surgery or something like that. You like look in the back of their legs, like you open up like their calves and you can see like a huge like chunk of like a blood clot. you can see a lot of that stuff, pulmonary embolism, doing an x-ray, someone's chest. So usually a younger person can have like a better chance of survival with something like that. But if it's something big, not so good. You can have like an embolism to like the heart. It's really like any type of like clot, that you have in your body. They're no bueno, especially if you have just had a surgery. Like we've talked about, with the BBL, it's like fat clotting, right? And fat's really hard to move out of certain areas. At least with someone that has blood clots consistently, you can give them a blood thinner, and that's like a easy solution. But someone who has fatty tissues in their body that's not supposed to be there, that was manually put there, that's not normal. So that's why you see those a lot of times after those types of surgeries.
Which is one of the most, that's what we talked about. It's your beauty, not your booty episode. Mm-hmm. It's one of the most dangerous procedures, cosmetic procedures you can have. And they don't ever talk about it. And I don't know, lately, I don't know why, but probably because our podcast, it's starting to pop up on my Instagram.
Where, your phone's listening.
Yeah. So women who have had BBLs, but it's like massive. And you're like, oh my gosh, it looks so like dangerous is what it looks like. Cause it's just, it's crazy.
Yeah. So, no, thank you.
No, thank you. That's scary to me because that seems like a sneaky way to die. Cause it's like people who are super healthy, all of a sudden you hear about like them getting.
Well, yeah. And also I could assume that would be also a very painful way to die, because I would think that feels, if you have a pulmonary embolism, I would feel like that feels like you're suffocating. So no, I'll pass on that. So my other P word that I have here is petechia. And we've talked about that in multiple cases. You have that a lot in cases that you have any lack of oxygen that's getting to the brain. So any strangulation, any asphyxia, so drowning, stuff like that. Petechia are going to be those little pinprick where it looks like your eyes are almost a little bloodshot, but they're specifically pinprick red points in your eyeballs and then like in your eyelids. So that's just literally lack of oxygen. Sometimes more so, it's going to be obvious like in strangulation type of cases because it's not like that constant pressure. And so if you have like that, like a little bit of a break and then you're pressing back down, it can be a little more obvious. So that's petechia. So we have Q through K. So this is quality assurance standards. Oh my gosh. I got so sick of hearing about this all the time. So it's basically meeting a standard, a national standard. And like, this is something that you also have at universities, right? To be like a quality assurance standard or like to meet like a standard to be like a certified whatever. So I know when we were in our old building, we weren't quality assured because like we didn't have like certain things that like our building code didn't meet. And also all of your investigators had to be certified, stuff like that. So you had to go through like this checklist and like they told you have this many years to meet this standard. And it's just something that you have to, and like a big thing with that was like your toxicology lab. And they were really strict about that. Like how you process your chemicals, how you store your chemicals. That's basically what it is. They come in with like this huge thing that they do like a checklist, like every so often they're coming in and they're checking off like this list of like
a restaurant, like you're getting graded.
Yeah. But like way bigger deal because you're dealing with people's death certificates. Yeah. So I think they were able to get that moving into the new building is like finally getting like things on 2 different air duct systems and stuff like that. It was like a big deal. So, and like not having to put bodies on the floor anymore or stacking them on top of each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, R. So I really don't care if people don't like the way I pronounce this. They did not spend 8 years in school and did not have a career in this. So until they do, I'm going to keep saying it this way until the day I die. So rigor or livor mortis. So it's basically the stiffening of your body after you die. It's literally a chemical reaction that happens, the stiffening of your muscles. And so the process basically happens or starts happening in your smaller muscles and like joints, and then works its way through your like bigger body parts or your bigger muscles. And then the rigor will break after, I don't know, with everything else I've said, and I've said this multiple times, it depends on your environment. If you're in a really hot place where your decomposition happens a lot faster, you can break that rigor a lot faster.
I didn't know that it breaks. I knew that you could break it, but I didn't realize that it was like something that once it starts, then it breaks.
Yeah, it passes after a certain amount of time because that's when you get to that really juicy decomp stage. And so at that point, it's like long gone. So you're only stiff for so long.
Well, that also helps determine the time of death then, or how long someone's been dead.
Yeah, it gives you a pretty good time frame. So sometimes we have to break it manually, which makes it really hard, especially sometimes you have what's like instant rigor. So it's like this phenomenon that happens sometimes. I think I've talked about this before with the guy with the vampire teeth. When he shot himself in the mouth, like his fingers were wrapped around the gun and they were very stiff. So I had to like break his fingers to get the gun out of his mouth. And so sometimes you have to do that to actually take pictures of their hands, or like you have to bend their hand in this way. Like sometimes their hands are clenched. You can actually like bend their tendons at a certain angle like this, that you can like open up their hand. So you
would like throwing a baseball, that movement.
Yeah. So you have to like push down on the tendons, you know, where like your carpal tunnel's at. Mm-hmm. So it's like the carpal, you push down the carpal at the base of the palm, and then you push the hand back towards you, and it opens up the fingers wide so you can take pictures of the hand. So sometimes when that doesn't work, you have to, especially if there are joints in their fingers, like if they have really bad arthritis, sometimes you have to like break their fingers. So yeah, so rigor's a really interesting thing because, yeah, like I said, sometimes they can set in really fast, or sometimes, you know, it takes a while. But yeah, especially if someone says, oh, well, I saw them at this time and they were fine. And you're like, because they're really stiff. So yeah, and like homicides or something like that, it can depend on someone's story. So, which I've had cases like that when the woman changed her story literally 50 times. I'm like, look at my paper. I have no more room. Like, figure out your story. So
guilty.
And yeah, which that's a good story. We'll have to tell soon because she was a liar. So that's rigor. And then risk it for the biscuit. That's kind of been our catchphrase.
That's Amy's catchphrase. So when she has to do something to save her life, or she feels like she's in danger, she risks it for the biscuit.
Man. You know what? Yeah. There was one time we had an intern with us. It was me, my boss, and an intern. And we had just gotten done eating lunch. And we had to go to this scene. And it was hands down one of the nastiest scenes. These people did not have running water. And it was husband and a wife. And the wife would literally go to the bathroom in like grocery bags, and they would just toss them into this room. Well, go figure. She died on top of all these bags.
Oh,
and
no.
Their dogs crapped all over the floor. So the floor, you couldn't even see what the actual flooring was because it was dry poop. So our transport driver, God bless his sweet soul, because he went in there and got her out. And I waited outside while my boss was in there with the transport driver, and the guy was inside with one of the dogs because the dog had already bit a firefighter earlier. And so the cop there was telling the guy, like, make sure that dog doesn't get out. Because if it does, he's like, I'm going to tase it. So I told the intern, I was like, hey, why don't you wait in the truck? Because it was like super hot. And I was like, I'll help him load her up once they get her out here. Well, the guy didn't keep the dog inside. The dog runs outside, makes eye contact with me, and starts running towards me.
Is it a little dog?
No, it's a pit bull. So I take off running for my life. And the cop luckily tased it. So talking about risk it for the biscuit.
But the dog didn't die, did he?
No, he tased it.
I don't know how tasing can be like. We've talked about tasing before. I just don't know like what that.
No, it's not enough to kill. No. So I was very thankful for that cop that day because Amy's tushy might have needed a BBL.
I picture you with a BBL.
my biscuit might need a new butter biscuit. Butter my biscuit. Jeez.
That's gross. Let's do one more. Let's finish off with S.
All right. Well, S, skin slippage. I really don't know what else I can say about that. It's gross. And it really is not great when you're trying to get someone that's been soaking in a bathtub full of water. And of course, you always get the transport driver that's 75 years old that's had 2 hip replacements. And you're like, why of all people did I get you? And so I'm like, giving myself a pep talk. And it's a trailer. And of course, the only way in and out with this cot, which is like the oldest cot, probably from the beginning of time, as old as your transport driver. So
that's not very nice, Amy.
It's true, though. So I have to move the washer and dryer to be able to get this cot in. And then it's the tiniest bathroom, too. And then the cop's like, oh, yeah, I'll help you. Well, he starts gagging, like, upon, like, seeing the body. So I'm like, you are of no help. So I have to reach in there in this nasty bath water that's been, it's almost like a crock pot.
Oh, no, Amy.
That's been stewing in this person's juicies. So I get multiple gloves and then I reach in there and I have to drain it. And then by the time it's drained, it's clogged with this person's skin that's slipped off. So I grab whatever I can. You try to find towels and you know, like I've told you, Mr. December, and you just try to get some leverage to pull this person out of his bathtub. So not only is skin sliding off, but, you know, sliding through the bathtub. So skin slippage, clogging up the drains.
That's so gross.
Coming off. Yeah. So that's skin slippage for you.
But it's basically once a body like starts decomposing, right? And then all the gases.
So that's kind of more on the tail end of decomposition once the body is really starting to break down. So the gas is like at full, like it's almost like a ticking time bomb when the bomb is about ready to go off.
And when it does go off, is that when everything just like...
Oh, you don't want to be in there once that starts to release. It's bad.
Ugh. All right. Well, we're learning things. So we're learning the do's and don'ts as well as the ABCs death investigation.
1, 2, 3.
We're going to finish up next week on the ABCs. But if you have any questions, you can email us at kelly@diaryofadeathinvestigator.com, or you can message us on our Instagram page, Diary of a Death Investigator. And until next time, bye.